Let's bring in Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis and Director of the American Military Project at the Claremont Institute, Will Thibault. All right, Lieutenant Colonel Davis, what are the risks with eliminating the Iranian nuclear program versus the risks of regime change?
Well, listen, there's both of them have a lot of risk for the United States because there's no reason we need to do that. We don't need for our national security to be using military force, period. Because right now, all of these troops we have scattered all throughout the Middle East, especially those in Iraq and in Syria, are extremely vulnerable to any kind of Iranian ballistic missile fire. You've seen how these ballistic missiles have just shredded the Iron Dome, the THAAD system, the Patriot system, all the things. It's David Sling, all those capabilities, those missiles are just going right through it. Most of our troops in the Middle East don't even have that much. If we go to war with Iran, they're going to hit the most vulnerable targets they can, and that's those troops over there. We should not put their lives at unnecessary risk to do something we don't need to do anywhere. Our security is already guaranteed. We have more than enough power and more than enough force to keep our assets clean and safe everywhere in the Middle East, and in fact, all around the world right now. We don't need a war to keep us safe.
Lieutenant Colonel, just to be clear, you're saying that the U.S. missile defense systems in the region, air and sea-based, as long as the Iron Dome are not that effective against the Iranian ballistic missiles? They haven't been intercepting most of them.
Most of them American technology. A lot of the American technology is what goes into the Iron Dome system and the Patriot system, the THAAD system. They're all there right now, and they're all being inadequate for this threat. The threat from the Iranian ballistic missiles is better than what the defense can pick up, including our own stuff.
All right, so Mr. Thibault, you served at a point in time. How are you feeling right now as a former service member?
Jesse, of course you're anxious, but I can't help but recall some of the own principles that you learn. Like Colonel Davis, I think I deployed to Iraq multiple times. And when I deployed, and just like when my unit had a barbecue, there was always an end state to every military operation. There is an end state right now for the U.S. military and for the Israeli military. Perhaps for good reason, it's concealed to us, but that end state comes with defined actions and tasks that get us there. Perhaps it is, as President Trump says, to ensure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. But we are in the midst of an escalatory spiral that is tough to see how this ends well for us. Like Colonel Davis says, it's harder to defend against a missile strike than to launch one. I think it's harder to ensure denuclearization without boots on the ground. For how much longer are we going to keep shooting missiles, or the Israelis and Iranians going to keep shooting missiles at each other without immense civilian loss of life and without an escalation that does eventually draw in the growing number of U.S. assets that are surging to the region? There has to be some sort of off-ramp. And the choices are a significant escalation that gets us to a regime change or a deal. And that's what President Trump, I think, is shooting for.
Yep, I think he's shooting for it too, but now he just flew back early from Canada to convene an emergency situation room meeting, and looks like something's about to go down. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your insight and your service.